Okay, so this is the build script which we have seen in our previous session, where we try to build a Java project from scratch, be it compilation, then we created jar file, then we created a binary which is a bundle of the jar as well as web files. We also discussed best practices, like we need to clean up the build artifacts whenever the build starts. We need to clean up the previous build artifacts whenever the build starts, and generally create all the directories which you need at one point, so that we'll have a clarity on what are the intermediate directories that we are creating as part of the build process. Now let me add another best practice here. Whenever you are writing build scripts, do not include, as much as possible, do not include hard-coded paths into your build scripts. So the best practice that we want to share here is that at any time in your build script, do not include, as much as possible, hard-coded paths, something like /user/ something in Linux, or C colon blah 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 D colon blah blah blah. So do not include such hard-coded path in your build scripts. Why? Because if you have to move this build script into different machine, the drive may not be present there, number one. Or if you are moving from Windows to Linux, the path structure, everything will vary. So it won't work even there, number two. So, and even here also, if you want to move from if you have done the setup in one folder, if you want to move into another folder, or if you want to use the same script for another project, it won't work. So that is why the strong advice is that do not include hard-coded paths, not just hard-coded paths, versions. Today, if you are using hard-coded, say Java 1.4, you have included in your source is equal to 1.4, you have included in your build script itself. Tomorrow, if you want to move to 1.5, you really don't know where all you have put 1.4. You have to manually search each and every machine and each and every build script. This is a pain. Okay. So do not include hard-coded paths. Do not include versions. Okay. So, and sometimes when you are using third-party things, say third-party libraries, generally you take a real Java project, at least there will be 20 to 25 third-party libraries will be there. A big enterprise level Java project. So in that case, when you are using third-party jar, say you are using JUnit on third-party jar, JUnit will have its own version. You can say in the class path, you can say that version may be having JUnit 4.8. You will be saying here lib/JUnit 4.8.jar, and then some such use Lucene 3.2.1. So when you are putting the information about versions into your script, tomorrow those third-party things may keep on upgrading. So it's very difficult for us whenever we want to have a new version, come into the script, search and then make the replacements is a painful process. That is why the step that I want to write here is that avoid using hard-coded paths, fixed version numbers into the build script for better maintainability. Even you take the case of the script that I have written yesterday, you will see a thing that could have done better. Here I am maintaining a 1.0.jar as the name of the jar file. Here I am maintaining a 1.0.zip as the name of the binary, name of the final artifact, final build artifact. Okay, this is the script. Just imagine somebody else have written the script and you have to maintain it. The day you join the project, immediately there is 1.1 coming up. So immediately you are asked to make the changes in all the build scripts across the build server, QA servers, or or multiple build servers like Windows, Linux, Solaris, etc. and you are asked to make the changes to the version and make it as 1.1 binary. So what you will do? You need to open each and every build script. Typically a build script will have at least 500 to 600 lines minimum. So you need to go through each and every task, identify where all the version is hard coded, and then change the version to another, and then do this on all the operating systems wherever build script needs to be executed. And yet if developers are having local builds, you should tell the developers also to make this change. And the problem is if 1.2 comes again, you have to repeat the whole exercise. Is it not? That's why the hard coding of the version that I have done in the script is not according to a best practice. But then what shall we do? Shall we release binaries without versions? We cannot release artifacts without versions. They must be there in the final artifact. So how can I solve this situation? I want app 1.0.jar as my output, but I don't want to put that version hard coded into the script. How can it be addressed? That is why you have a concept called properties in AND. So how do you work with properties? In AND, you can define properties in this format. I can say property, I can define property in the form of name and value. I can say property name is equal to app version. Let me say value is equal to 1.0. So whenever I say this, I am defining a property called app version and I am giving it a value called 1.0. Something like variables. If you are familiar with any programming language, you can declare a constant and give a value for it, or you can declare a variable and give a value for it. So anytime you want to use that value, you will use the value of variable. The advantage is that tomorrow you change the value at one place, in all other places it will be reused automatically. So here I have defined a variable called property. I have declared a property called app version and I am given the value as 1.0. Now wherever 1.0 is there, I don't want this number 1.0. I want to replace it with $. Dollar means app version is the name of the property. $app version means value of the property. So whenever I say how do I retrieve the value of a property? I can retrieve the value of a property by $ symbol. Dollar and include the name of the property in braces. Then you will be able to retrieve the value of a particular property. So what is the value of $app version here? The value of the property app version is 1.0. So wherever I see 1.0, I can replace it with $app version. So now let me build it. So it is built correctly. It is made app 1.0 jar is created, app 1.0 zip is created, everything is created correctly. So tomorrow I have a new requirement where I have to build for 1.1. I just need to change it one place. I need not look into the complete script to see where all I need to change. I only need to change a property. Now you can see app 1.1.jar is created, app 1.1 zip is created. So you can see it very conveniently. If you are not cleaning up build artifacts, what you will see here is both app 1.0.zip will be here, app 1.1.zip will be here. That's why the best practice is to delete all the previous artifacts. Okay, good. So that is one way to declare the properties. You can declare a property as name and value in your build script. Suppose if there are many properties, just imagine I have around 20 properties. That will not make your build script look nice because your targets will be way below. So in that case, a better approach is to define a file called xy_sum properties, and in that you put all the properties that you want to use and then give a reference of that file in your build script. Like here we defined a single property. We can define a property file as well, which contains a set of properties. Let me show that to you. So let me create one new file. I can give any name to this file because build.xml is standard. Something like build.properties is standard. It's not like that. Property file can be anything. For our convenience, I am giving it as build.properties, but it is not any restriction which is imposed by, and it's not a constraint. Since these are properties which are used at the time of build, I am using build.properties. So when I have a build.properties, I can very quickly say name is equal x is equal to y format. That's all. Very simple. I can say app version is equal to 1.0. Simple. So no need of any other syntaxes, etc. Now I can go to my build script and I can say instead of putting the property like this, I can say like this. Property I can say property file is equal to, so what is the name of the file I have created? Build.properties. I only need to include the name of the file here. Property file is equal to build.properties. Okay, so we have here property file is equal to build.properties. Now let me run it. So what did I do here? Instead of declaring property in the script itself, I have declared the properties in a file and gave the reference of that file. Again, how do you refer this file? There are two ways. One, you can give an absolute path from E drive, so and so, blah, 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 out to build.properties. Okay. So E 2003, 13 batches, batch 31 and practice, connect 4, then slash build.properties that you can put here. Or since build.properties at the same location as where you are running your build script, you can very conveniently say build.properties because it will look for a file called build.properties in the current directory in this case. So I have included there. Now let me just run it and see. So you can see again app 1.0.jar, app 1.0.zip, everything is getting created. Now if I go to, let me just make 1.2 and recheck again. So here we have app 1.2.jar, 1.2.zip, everything is getting created conveniently here. So what you understood now is couple of things. One is that we can either declare a property in the form of name value pair in the build script itself, or we can define properties in a separate property file and have a reference of that file in the build script. So both will work. Let me add one more example. Say for example, I want to have my compilation directory as not build/classes, but I want it as build/Java classes. Okay. So what I will do, let me define a property here. I will say or I don't want my classes in this particular folder. I want the, let me take an example where I don't want the final artifact in this particular folder. I want to have the artifact in the E drive. Just imagine you have given E drive sharing for everybody, and everybody will look for the build in that drive. So you want to have the artifact generated in the E drive itself. So you can say dist, you can give any convention for property. There is no rules, but make it look meaningful. So I will say dist.directory is equal to, I will say e:/dist. So I don't want the distribution folder within this project. I want distribution folder to be separate. Okay. So I don't want to say here delete dist or something. I will say delete directory is equal to $dist.dir. So what is $dist.dir, guys? The value of the property dist.dir. What is the value of this property? You know that just now I created a dist.dir is e:/dist. Okay. So finally, wherever I want to use, instead of saying dist, now I say $dist.dir. So what is happening now? I am changing my distribution directory from within this project to an outside location. Now just let me run this. Now you can see the things are built. Now let me go to E drive. You can see a folder dist getting created here. You will see the final zip is built in e:/dist. So let me go to e:/dist. You can see here app1.2.zip got created. Okay, the only thing that I want you to note here is whenever you are generally the backslash is for creating the paths. So, but in the case of drive, whenever you want to escape this slash, which is part of the drive symbol, you need to escape it with another slash. So, whenever you have backslash characters, you need to add 2 slashes. That is one small thing that you need to notice. If you want to have another folder path, you can put it like this. If you want to have another path, another subdirectory, put it with double slash, because slash has a predefined meaning. Or a better way is to use forward slash, and it will take care of it. If you put forward slash, it will work. If you are using backward slash, you need to put 2 slashes in the property when you are declaring the properties. See, it has created even in this case also. So general, if you either you use 2 slashes, 2 backslashes, or you can use forward slash, and it will resolve the path the path separator correctly. Either you put forward slash or backward slash. So that is something about properties. Another important point. What will happen in this scenario? Just think about it. I have a build.xml. So here I am declaring a property app version, and I am naming as 1.1. Here I am naming it as 1.2. So I have a property already defined 1.2, and during the build script I want to change the value of the property again. Now first, whenever build starts, I am setting the value as 1.1. Then I am loading this property file, which internally loads the value as 1.2. Now what value will be retained for app version during the execution of script? I want you to understand here, the point that I want to understand is that AND properties are immutable. When I say immutable, whenever the value of property is set at the beginning of the execution, that value will be retained irrespective of how many times you change during the course of the build process. So in this case, first value that's set is 1.1, and throughout this build AND will have a property of 1.1. Now you can see that app 1.1 is retained, even though I have put app 1.2 in the build.properties file. Okay. On the other hand, if I put this property file above, now 1.2 is loaded first, and it will continue to use 1.2 throughout the execution of the, see, 1.2 is used. So that is a very important point to note down. And properties are immutable. So at the beginning of execution of a particular script, whatever value is set for a particular property, that value will be retained throughout the execution of the build script. However, there are certain ways which you can tweak it. See, this is in principle, but we can open a file using there is a concept called property file in AND. So there is in the list of AND tasks, we have a task called property file. So if we use this particular property file, what we can use is we can edit a property file. We can open a property file, look for some entry, and then replace it with a different value. Suppose we have a properties file, say my.properties. Now there is a property with some value, with some name and value. Now we can actually edit this file. We can load this particular property file, and we will look for an entry with the property name, and we will give a new value. So in this way, we can actually tweak a property file to have a new value during the build itself. And when we load that property file again, it will load obviously the new value. So this is one tweaky way to change the property at execution time, but it is strictly not recommended. I repeat, by default AND properties are all immutable, meaning when we set the with whichever value of a property we start execution, the same will be retained throughout the execution of the build script. Okay, but this is mainly from an interview perspective. It's not that you would use these things, but this is an interview question. How do you tweak the value of a property at build time? You need to explain this with an example. There is a task, there is a file called property file, single word property file, and provides an optional task for editing the property files. So the task name is property file. Understand, it is different from property with passing the file as the parameter. It is different from this. The task name itself is property file there. So what we can do in that property file task is we can load a file, we can load a properties file and look for a key with a particular property name and replace and give a new value for that. In that way we can change the value of the property inside the script itself. And when we load the properties file again, obviously whatever values are there inside will be loaded. In that way we can load two values for a property, but those are all not from a usage perspective, but in interview you will get some surprise questions. This is one such one. So how do you use SCP? What is the purpose of SCP? SCP is for secure copy. So the purpose of SCP is to copy a file from a local machine into a remote machine, or copy a file from a remote machine into a local machine. Okay, so it can do either of these two things. So if you want to copy a local file to a remote machine, you can do this way. SCP is the name of the task. The file attribute talks about the file that you want to copy. Obviously that will be in your local machine. To directory is the location where you want to copy your file, destination. So to reach your destination, you will have username, you will have colon password @ you will have the machine IP followed by colon, and then you give the path to that particular, you give the path to that particular directory where you want to copy the file. Okay. Similarly, if you want to copy single remote file to a directory, means the file is in Linux and you want to bring it to a local directory. So you need to say SCP. The file is now where? In the remote machine. So you give the details on how do you want to reach that particular file. User, password, machine, and the location of the file in that particular machine. Using this, you will be able to identify that particular file, and then tell to directory is equal to give the directory where you want the file to be copied. Okay, so if you put dot, it will copy to current directory. // means from the current directory go one level above. That is the meaning of this //. Dot means current directory. // means one level above. So you can copy directories, one local directory to remote directory, or remote directory to local directory. You can do all these copy operations here using SCP. So this is another, after SSH, this is another useful task. In SSH, what you can do is you can connect to any remote machine and then run any command on that machine. Generally, what we will do, if we want to run the build script on Linux machine, we will have an SSH execution task in our build script, and we give the host IP, username and password, and then we call AND. So when we call AND here, what it effectively does is, it will go to that machine and fire an AND command there. In that way, you will be able to build your AND script parallelly on your Linux machine as well. So like this, you can make use of this SSH commands and SCP commands for effectively running various commands and transferring artifacts from Linux machines.